Well, my friends, the transition from Sony to Fuji has officially commenced. I am currently recording on my Fujifilm X-T4, and that is what I am going to be doing for the foreseeable future. Until I upgrade. But right now I am very happy, very content with this setup. Last week I shot on my Canon so I could show the camera off the Fuji X-T4 on the episode, and it just made life a lot easier for me. But this week I am officially recording full on this new setup, and I am very happy with it. If you've been following along with this channel, you know that I have been practicing street photography. I want to say that I started dipping my toes into it about maybe half a year ago, so I'm still relatively new to it, and learning every day. I'm trying to get outside and take photos as much as possible, and I'm doing that about 2 to 3 times a week. And you know, if you follow me on Instagram, you might see some of my photos that I've been taking. All that to say that I've been practicing and learning using my Fujifilm X100V, which has a fixed focal length of 23mm or a 35mm equivalent on a full frame lens. And I would say this is the perfect gateway drug into learning street photography. But after several weeks of toting this around with me, I started to get a little curious. And ever since I got my X-T4, my curiosity was piqued and wanted to try out a couple of different other focal lengths, especially because my bread and butter is portrait photography. I love taking portraits, self-portraits, especially using lenses like a 50 to 56 or 85mm lens. And now that I have the X-T4, I took the liberty to experiment with those lenses. And that is what this video is going to be about. So just a disclaimer, this is not meant to be a review video, although I do plan on making reviews based on these lenses in the future. This video is basically me sharing that experience with you, what I've learned, what I like, what I don't like. Glean from it what you will. Share your experiences down below. Have you shot street photography using these lenses? You get the idea. If you came here for a review, that's not what this is about. But, you know, stick around, grab a cup of something, and let's get into things. There were 2 lenses that I played around with last week, and the first was the Fujinon 50mm lens, f2, and as you can see, it is very, very compact, very lightweight. The next one is the Canon 85mm 2.8, and I actually used an adapter to connect this to my X-T4. I do want to say that if I didn't have the amount of practice that I already have under my belt, I would not feel comfortable at all going out shooting with this camera, especially street photography. I would just be very self-conscious, and yeah, it would just not happen. But having gone out for, you know, as much as I have been, I've been desensitized, basically. And you know, if you are new to street photography, this is something important to keep in mind. So the more you do it, the more you go out and take photos, the more comfortable and less self-conscious you're gonna be, and I can attest to that. So when I did go out and shoot with this thing, I was okay. I was fine, and you know, even though it's got a little bit of weight to it, you know, I really didn't think too much about it. So that's some food for thought there. The first lens that I took out was the Fujinon 50mm f2, which comes highly recommended as a street photography lens because it is very lightweight and compact, as you can see. I mean, it's a little longer because it has the lens hood on, but for the most part, it's incredibly lightweight, perfect for toting around with you wherever your street photography adventures take you. Needless to say, this was very fun to shoot with, and I can attest that it is an excellent street photography lens. It's a little tighter than your traditional 23 to 35mm lens. If you're like me and still not completely comfortable getting close to your subjects, this can definitely help. Although I will say, you know, hey, practice makes perfect. All of you street photography purists out there might be shaking your heads and saying you should just practice with the 35mm. Get comfortable getting close to your subjects. Well, you know what, my friends? I'm just not there yet, and that's okay. So I have no reservations just throwing on a 50mm and getting close that way. Introvert, hello. I digress, but yeah, this is an excellent lens. I was pleasantly surprised, and while the 50mm was getting me closer to my subjects, it just wasn't hitting that sweet spot that I was looking for. So I ended up adapting my Canon 85mm 2.8 to the X-T4. I ought to mention that the adapter that I used was non-electrical. It's by Haug or Hogue. I will link to it down below. It was relatively relatively inexpensive from Amazon. But yeah, it's non-electrical, and that means that there is no electronic chit-chat between the lens and the camera. Your camera basically becomes manual. This was a complete learning experience for me, and a good one, because I am now a huge fan of shooting manual. And that is because with Fuji, as far as I know, they have a thing called manual focus peak assist. When peak assist is turned on, even with a manual lens, you're able to nail focus when turning the focus ring, because everything in focus will be highlighted red, which I think is brilliant. So manual focus, piece of cake. That said, I took this beast out for a spin and I was delighted by the results. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it threw me a curveball when it came to composing my shots, because yeah, I'm so used to practicing on wider focal lengths, like, you know, the 23mm or 35, where, you know, you get a lot more environment in the shot. This just zooms like right across the street. I felt very paparazzi with it. I definitely had to rethink my shots, you know, where I was standing. Because it is a prime, I'm zooming with my feet. If I do want to continue shooting with this lens, which I think I do, I'm kind of liking it. I want to see where it goes. This lens, by the way, the Canon 85mm 2.8, is by far my favorite lens ever. It's just, I've had it for several years now, and it's my go-to for portraits. I definitely didn't get to really test its sea legs, if that makes sense. So I was really excited to be able to take this out and have some fun with it, and shoot other things other than portraits with it. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty tempted to try an even longer focal length, like 100mm. I know now that I'm not afraid of manual focus anymore, that just opens up an entire world of possibilities for me. And I know a lot of you down in the comments have been suggesting that I try vintage lenses, which, what are you doing to me? What are you trying to do to me, guys? Another rabbit hole for sure. Lately I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos of people reviewing Minolta vintage lenses, and if you've been tuning in for quite some time, you might know that I love Lens Baby. I love any lenses that can give you special effects in camera. The cool thing about vintage lenses is that they do give you that kind of look or feel, or just, you know, they have a personality to them, a quality that, you know, modern lenses don't have. It's almost, I can't even describe it, but I would definitely love to explore some vintage lenses in the near future. And looking on eBay, a lot of these vintage lenses are relatively affordable. I mean, a Minolta 50mm runs about $30 to $50 depending where you look at. So I mean, you know, hey, it's definitely worth exploring if you are curious about a specific focal length, as opposed to spending money renting them or buying a new lens. You can definitely get a feel for a focal length by buying vintage, which, so yeah, that was my experience this past week playing around with longer focal lengths. Again, the 50mm f2 and the 85mm. And again, I do plan to do a full review of the 50mm f2 at some point. I just want to play around with it some more and get a feel for it. But right off the bat, I can tell you I'm very happy that this is in my kit. I really enjoyed using it. Again, it's lightweight. It definitely fits the bill when it comes to street photography, and I can also see using this as a great travel portrait lens. I mean, you know, the f2 gives you that great bokeh. More to come on this one. So I think that will do it for me this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it's not your average, you know, camera video or review. It's this YouTube channel. I hope to do more reviews and more in-depth tutorials and whatnot, but for the most part, I started this YouTube channel to just kind of share my photography experiences and adventures, and, you know, share what I'm trying, and I hope you guys are into that. And if you are, thank you so much for being here. Next week I hope to share with you who my photography inspirations are, you know, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to when it comes to photography. If that's something that you're into, I hope to see you back next week. But in the meantime, if you are new here and haven't already, please feel free to like and subscribe down below. I put out a video for your viewing pleasure every week. And until the next video, bye!